Tesla is dominating the electric vehicle market.
There's simply no real competition, even though many have been claiming for years that
global competition is coming.
Well, technically they weren't wrong. Audi, Jaguar, GM, and many others did produce EVs, but they weren't the so-called Tesla killers some thought they would be. In the US, if it's electric and if it's not a Tesla, it's probably not selling very well because around 80% of EV sales in the US last year came from Tesla. In December, Jaguar sold just 176 I-Paces, Audi sold 746 e-trons, and Nissan sold 1,227 Leafs. Compared to Tesla, these results are a big disappointment. According to Inside EVs, Tesla sold around 47,000 Model 3s in the US during the fourth quarter and globally sold more than 112,000 cars. Of course, with the global car market of nearly 80 million units per year, Tesla is barely scratching the surface. However, if consumers and regulators continue to push for electrification, and if this is the start of a new race, Tesla's competition is making a pretty bad first impression.
So why is it that automakers just can't compete with Tesla? Is this all they've got?
The simple reason for lagging behind is because nothing can compete with the Model 3's perfect combination of range, performance, technology, its charging network, and of course, value. In reality though, it's a little more complicated than that. The cost and availability of today's lithium-ion cells just doesn't allow automakers to build an electric car without making sacrifices when it comes to things like range, quality, profits, or price. The cost of a battery pack can be several times more expensive than an internal combustion engine powertrain. According to Bloomberg, lithium-ion cells cost around $156 per kilowatt hour. This means that the battery in a Chevy Bolt could cost over $10,000 plus the electric motor and other components. Manufacturers need to either pass that cost over to the consumer or make sacrifices on quality to keep costs reasonable. This is probably why a $37,000 Bolt just doesn't feel like a $37,000 car.
Even if manufacturers sold these cars at a major loss just to increase volume, the next problem would be finding enough battery cells,
which is already something that Audi is struggling with. In order for Tesla to make the high-volume Model 3, Tesla and Panasonic teamed up together and spent an estimated $5 billion to build the first Gigafactory battery plant in Nevada. Even though this plant has made Panasonic the largest producer of lithium-ion cells, the factory went online in 2016, and as of last quarter, it only enabled Tesla to have an annual run rate of about 420,000 units. As impressive as it is, that wouldn't even cover Toyota's RAV4 sales just in the United States.
Given these restrictions, it just didn't make business sense for manufacturers to sacrifice stable profits and spend tens of billions of dollars diving into the EV space at full force. However, this didn't stop manufacturers from at least trying to compete with Tesla. Many automakers have introduced new EVs to the market recently, but these vehicles are based on modified platforms that were designed for gasoline-powered cars, not electric, and that's a problem.
A major problem with this is that you end up with a similar, if not the same vehicle that uses a far more expensive powertrain. For example, the Hyundai Kona SEL starts at $21,000, but the Kona electric version starts at $37,000. That's almost 80% more expensive. Even the I-Pace and the e-tron cost at least 50% more than their ICE counterparts. Unlike most of the others, Porsche went all out and developed the Taycan with a distinct design that even utilized its own platform. The Taycan isn't perfect, but it has many redeeming factors such as consistent track performance, a beautiful design, and a driving experience by Porsche.
In fact, the Porsche Taycan was kind of the first electric car to really grab the attention of Elon Musk. Within days of the official Taycan unveiling, Elon Musk went to Twitter and announced that a Model S would be heading over to the Nürburgring track in Germany.
Tesla sent heavily modified prototypes using a new triple-motor powertrain called Plaid. Other modifications included larger wheels, performance brakes, flared fenders, big wings, and a diffuser. This was an unusual move by Tesla because although the Taycan was great around the track, it fell short when it comes to range, and the high-performance variants are extremely expensive. The Taycan Turbo S can easily set someone back over $200,000, and it's easily the least efficient EV on the market with a range of 192 miles. But this is only according to the EPA. Some independent tests and reviews are showing significantly better results for the Taycan. For shoppers that care less about speed and still desire an EV that's not a Tesla, the Taycan 4S is a great alternative. It should have well over 200 miles of range and a price tag of $110,000. That's about 10% more than a base 911 and nearly the same when you take into account US tax credits. The Taycan may not be the perfect EV for everyone, but it's unique, it's cool, and it comes from a great automaker. Even Will Smith has one. Most importantly though, the Taycan is a preview of what we can expect from the competition in the coming years. Developing a new car takes many years, especially when designing a new vehicle from the ground up. This is why a car may look the same for 5 or 6 years without undergoing any major changes. In fact, the Mission E prototype was unveiled in 2015, which was before the Model 3 was unveiled.
Since it takes so long to develop a new vehicle, most of the cars we see on the road today are the results of how automakers thought about electric vehicles before the Model 3 was even unveiled. If I had to take a guess, back then they probably weren't that serious about electric vehicles.
However, Tesla's success with the Gigafactory battery plant and the affordable Model 3 proves that electrification is possible, and manufacturers are now forced to push harder than ever when it comes to electrifying their fleet. Automakers are now working on their own battery plants and pouring tens of billions of dollars into EV technology. Some have even killed off future development of the internal combustion engine. Again, since a car takes so long to develop, we're only now starting to see the results of what automakers have been up to after witnessing the Model 3. Volkswagen is by far making the most aggressive push towards electrification with many new models. Their CEO even thinks they can catch up and eventually overtake Tesla. Later this year, the Mustang Mach-E will begin production, and next year, Mercedes should start producing the high-end EQS. Even BMW is working on the i4 that will compete directly with the Model 3 in 2022. Of course, we can't forget about Rivian, which has received billions of dollars from companies like Ford and Amazon and will be releasing their truck later this year. Unlike the past products, these are real EVs and not compliance vehicles. Naturally, Tesla has a big lead in efficiency and other technology and hasn't been asleep at the wheel with new products like the Model Y, the Semi, the Roadster, and the Cybertruck. Tesla's lead is so far ahead that many are even starting to speculate that the competition is screwed.
I know that a lot of people like to refer to Tesla as the next Apple and that this is just the iPhone moment. However, I do think there's a couple of differences between Apple and Tesla that doesn't necessarily negate that argument, but kind of makes it less likely to be true, at least in my opinion.
When the iPhone was unveiled, it was arguably one of the biggest blindsides in history. Before it, no consumer or smartphone maker could even fathom such a device before Steve Jobs unveiled it on stage. The iPhone changed everything from the way a phone looks to how it's controlled by the user. Remember the audience's reaction to something as simple and intuitive as pinch to zoom?
And so let me go ahead and get the camera back up. Yeah, there it is right there. I can just take my fingers and we call it the pinch. I can bring them closer together or move them further apart to make it bigger or smaller. And so I can just move them further apart and stretch the image. Isn't that cool?
Not only that, the iPhone was extremely profitable from day one, and Apple ramped production to over 100 million units annually in just a few years despite weathering the Great Recession. When it comes to Tesla, the Model 3 was definitely a shock to the industry, but it was the company's fourth product and it took longer than expected to hit the market and ramp production. This has given the competition valuable time to observe and respond with their own products, which makes me question some people's idea about the competition being screwed or going bankrupt. I like to look at the auto industry as a marathon rather than a sprint, and I feel fairly confident that new dedicated vehicles will be released with time that consumers will be excited about. Manufacturers are currently operating a money-printing ICE business, and they need to balance the transition to EVs by overcoming battery costs and supply constraints, which most likely isn't going to happen overnight. For companies like Honda and Toyota that thrive on the affordable segments, this could take longer. This is likely why they've been focused on the cost-effective plug-in hybrid model, which is promising in the short run. This summer, Toyota will launch the RAV4 Prime that will have 39 miles of electric-only range and be priced in the low $30,000. It will even do 0 to 60 in 5.8 seconds. That's faster than the announced specs of the standard range Model Y. The next few years is going to be pretty exciting for the auto industry, and for the first time, consumers will have real electric vehicles to choose from. Since it takes so long to develop a new car, most of the products on the road today began development before automakers even realized the threat of cars like the Model 3. However, over the next few years this will change as new, real EVs from the competition hit the market. Whether or not this affects Tesla's dominance in the EV space is something we'll have to wait to see. What do you think? Will the competition be able to catch up to Tesla? Or will Tesla fend off the competition with no problems?
As always, thank you for watching. Oh, by the way guys, if you're looking for a new broker, Webull is giving out 2 free stocks. All you gotta do is use the link in the description to sign up and deposit any amount. One of those stocks could be worth up to $1,400.